All right, folks, welcome to Gun Owners Radio, FM 96.1, AM 1170.
The answer.
So what happens when vegan culture and gun culture collide? Find out next with Vegan Danielle.
But first, primeres.com/Alpine. That's PRMI Mortgage. Are you in the military? You're looking for help for a VA loan? You're looking to buy or refi, or if you're just considering a reverse mortgage, call our local mortgage guy that you can trust. Call Chris Wiley at PRMI Mortgage. For nearly 25 years, Chris has been helping local San Diegans with all their mortgage needs. Call Chris Wiley at 619-722-1303 or just go to primeres.com/Alpine.
So about a year ago, somebody reached out to San Diego County Gun Owners, and in the process, who was very pro-gun, in the process found out that she had a very strong following because of basically spreading the word of veganism. And I thought, well, that's pretty unique. So I got to talking to Danielle, and it turns out she's very pro-Second Amendment and very, very vegan. Right?
Yeah, it's not a very common combination either.
How long have you been this way?
This way. I was not born this way. A lot of people ask me that. 2015 after a cancer scare, actually. Yeah, the vegan part.
Right. Not the guns.
The gun part I grew up in the desert, so it's kind of common, you know.
Interesting.
So talk a little bit about being vegan. What exactly does it mean to be vegan?
Where do I get my protein? That's the biggest question.
Yeah.
So being vegan literally means I don't eat or use any animal products. So it's not just limited to the diet. Like I don't buy fur. I will say
you
that
don't eat anything that smiles back.
Right. Or like the secretions of those animals.
I have to say, I don't buy fur anymore either. So.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Never bought
We
fur.
had to really convince him to stop buying fur. It was an awkward conversation.
Yeah. It looks really weird in fur, I have to say.
So no leather either? No fur?
Generally, vegans do not wear any animal products. I will say that I did keep a lot of my leather jackets from before. And I'll still use them because I feel like the animal has already died. Yeah. So
it's not like you're going to glue it back on.
Right. So I don't buy it anymore, but yeah, I still have a couple things.
And what's a big misconception other than the protein thing? Because
that's the number one.
Yeah, that's the number one. What's a big misconception of vegans?
Well, I don't know if I'd call this a misconception because it's kind of true, but a stereotype is that super blue, super anti-gun, and it's really funny because there's this confusion there when we talk about factory farms that are highly government subsidized, and along with the pharmaceutical industries that go, a lot of the antibiotics, I think it's 80% goes into factory farming because of how close the animals are together. They need to have all these antibiotics to keep them from getting sick. And all these vegans are like, oh, F the government, they're a part of this thing. And then you talk about the Constitution and they're like, oh, it's a totally different story. And you're like, wait, what?
So the views they have, the anti kind of authoritarian views they have on that support their vegan habit.
Right. Beliefs.
Yeah, beliefs. That doesn't translate to guns. Why do you think that is?
I think a lot of people in general, but especially the vegan side coming from the loving, compassionate side, still has it in their mind that gun equals violence. That there's not this separation of it can also mean or should only mean really protection, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the association that keeps being
made. And
made.
who reaches out to a vegan from the gun community?
I do.
Right.
Well, I know.
This guy.
No.
Mike Schwartz.
But you know what I'm saying? Generally speaking,
yeah.
You're kind of like a pastor of a church.
I know.
I'm not going to go to you and say, hey, you want to go shooting this Saturday? Because, she's a pastor, so she's, not going to. We preconceive
exactly
what you're going to like and what you're not going to like.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's another important. I think something I've learned, something I've kind of picked up on, is it seems like vegetarians. There's a difference between being vegetarian and being vegan, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like vegetarians. It's more if people that are vegetarians, they do it from it's healthier angle. Where vegans, it's more of it's a morality thing.
I would say you could assume that. Obviously, everybody's got their own story. But yeah, I think a lot of vegetarians, I have a coworker that's vegetarian, and she's like, well, I did it because I wanted to lose weight. And then I started learning a little bit about the animal side. I'm like, but don't you realize that dairy is one of the most inflammatory things? And being vegetarian just means you don't eat meat. So they actually tend to eat more dairy products because they're almost like replacing it with the meat. And so it's like, well, wait, are we really doing anything good? So it's interesting on the health standpoint too.
It's kind of fun to make fun of vegans, right? It's kind of fun. Like, what are your...
No,
it gets old, though, doesn't it?
It's just like we were talking about the protein thing. It's like I hear that all the time. Like even at work, sometimes people they'll ask me questions about like, oh, I do bodybuilding competitions, as you know, and say, oh, well, where do you get your protein? And I'm like, the easiest way for me to explain this is that when you look at some of the strongest land animals, you're looking at gorillas or rhinos or elephants, like they're primarily getting their food as plants, in the form of plants, right? Like they might eat a couple bugs here and there, but they're not hunting down lions. Well,
make that statement you made off air about how many animals we eat.
Right, compared to what's available. So this is another thing we were talking about, is that when people say, what do you eat? And I'm like, okay, in America, we're in a developed country. Most people eat at most 5 different kind of animals, right? Like pigs, chickens, cows, maybe turkey. There's a couple in there. Duck, maybe snake, like depending on where you're at, right? And then you look at how many edible plants there are, and I want to say there's something like 500,000. Like there's like some huge number. Now, granted, not all of them are available to every region, of course, but like it's such a diverse, population that it's like I think people just get very stuck in their ways, and so. And me included, right? And so you have to kind of relearn. Like you're not just like going to throw some chicken on the grill and then put some broccoli next to it. Now we got to figure out something a little bit bigger. So
and a lot of people don't know from a vegetable side what you can eat and what you can't eat. You can eat a chicken. You can eat a pig. you can eat a cow.
That's a valid point.
But they don't know, like when you go to the grocery store and you look at all the vegetables. I guarantee
you can eat all those.
Yeah, but the majority of the people...
all those in the grocery store you can eat, Dave.
But you know what? The majority of the people go, they get broccoli, they get asparagus, they get lettuce.
A carrot.
A cucumber, and they're done.
Well, what's interesting,
no
too?
No kale, no rutabagas, none of the above, because they don't know.
Well, it's interesting you're saying that, too, because when we talk about this, we think about, like, the chain type supermarkets, right? That like they have the weirdest thing they may have is a turnip or a rutabaga, right? But
Whole Foods.
Right. My last job I worked at was actually a produce distributor, and we brought in produce from everywhere. And so we saw some crazy stuff from like Thailand or jackfruit and stuff like that. And people are like, what the heck is this? And I'm like, I want to try it.
One of my first jobs is when I was a kid, because I didn't have a lot of money and no food, so I worked at Safeway.
Yeah.
And I used to love when we get the vegetables in and the fruits. If I didn't know what it was, you got it for free. Because we didn't have a computer that told us what it was. I'd pick up this thing. I go, what the heck is that? And you know what? It's on me. And I'd give it to you because I didn't know what it was. But I never thought far enough out to find out more about it to see if I'd eat it.
Well, what's interesting, too, is when we talk about, like, this obsession in America with protein. Like, everybody's like, oh, you need protein to get strong. That's not false. But with the amounts that we're consuming as a whole, like, we can't even process that much. And what people are not focusing on, number one, is fiber. Everybody's got stool problems these days, gut issues. Nobody's eating enough fiber. And what about the micronutrients? Like, all of those are found in plants, well, most of them.
Right. But then you can eat too much fiber.
This is true, but like you'd have to kind of try.
I have,
like, people are constantly telling me I'm full of, so that probably need to.
Right. Well, the powders, the protein powders.
Yeah.
I had a buddy of mine. He's on TV, Muscle Man of Technology. Had to go in for triple bypass. He's built like a rock, 60 years old, but he was all clogged up because that's all he ate. Because he thought that's what would put the muscle mass on that 60-year-old chassis. American Shooters is the newest gun shop in the San Diego and Gun Owners Radio newest show sponsor. If you're looking for a great gun shop for any of your firearm needs, go visit American Shooters. Tell Ernie you heard about them on Gun Owners Radio. They have a great selection of new and used and consigned firearms. Visit American Shooters at 1464 Graves Avenue, right off the Bradley exit in El Cajon.
All right, we're talking to pro Second Amendment and pro vegan Danielle, and I'm trying to influence her to start spelling it VEGUN.
Vegan.
VEGUN.
Oh, my goodness.
That's right. That just happened. We actually started an Instagram. What is it called? Like
Vegan.
Vegan lovers, or
Something.
vegan lovers, something like that.
I thought it was pretty funny. I'm going to be the only one on there. Will you?
So we just talked a lot about. We just talked more about veganism than this show has ever talked about.
You're right.
So our listeners probably know more about, have heard more about vegan stuff in the last segment than they've ever heard in their whole life, which is awesome. I got to tell you, you've been taking me to vegan restaurants. They're delicious. I love food in general. Vegan food, if it tastes good, I don't care. It's good. It's delicious. But let's talk about the Second Amendment part.
Yeah.
What makes you pro-gun? Why are guns important?
Wait a minute. Did you take her to Denny's?
For the spaghetti?
Did you take her to Denny's? Because that's vegan.
No, I don't know if the spaghetti's
me.
not vegan.
Trust me, it's vegan.
Yeah, it's
at
not real
Denny's.
meat.
It's not real
Those
meat.
meatballs, it's quote unquote meatballs.
Okay, so what was that for? Why am I pro?
Yeah, talk about why is the Second Amendment important?
It's interesting because, like I mentioned, I grew up in the middle of the desert, so we just grew up. Like I remember my dad had a Mossberg, and like we would there was no like laws out there. Like I mean there were, but we didn't follow them. We just go in the middle of nowhere and just set up some targets, and so I just kind of grew up around him. Like my dad wasn't like a crazy gun fanatic, but I was comfortable and. I also believe in this thing called the Constitution. And so it just kind of, I don't know, I feel like I got away from them for a little while. I lived in LA in my late teens and early 20s, and ex-boyfriend was a cop, so we would go to the range sometimes together. And then it just kind of, I don't know, they went away for a while just because it wasn't like a huge part of my life, but I always felt that, like, I've never been anti-gun, Yeah. And then I guess since I've been in San Diego, and even more so since you and I have been talking, I've just really kind of been diving more into it, and I don't know.
Well, but I mean, and the point I really want to get at, you're not, there are people that are pro-Second Amendment, but you're not one of those people.
No.
You're very, I mean, you and your husband, Derek, you guys shoot, you guys have rifles and pistols, and I mean, you're legit like, hey man, we need to carry, we need to own, it's important. You've gone to some Not Me events.
Yeah, I went with Desi, a little shout out, and she invited me to help be one of the instructors there with Wendy, and that was really fun. It was really cool. I was a little nervous at first. I was like, I don't know if I'm at the level of instructor, but then when I started realizing that some of the women that were coming in literally like first or second time hands on firearms, so I knew a little more than that, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, sometimes you kind of forget like how much you know. You're so comfortable around guns. You grew up around guns. You kind of forget like, oh, I know a lot more than I even realized.
Right, and I think that applies to anything. It's like I remember hearing something before that you just got to know one thing more than the last guy, right? Like in order to help someone out. So
make an expert. So
yeah.
and I think it's really, really interesting. This one part, learning about vegan culture. I guess that's a way of putting it, right?
Sure.
Vegan culture and I see this not just with vegans, but with a lot of different subgroups or whatever, like the LGBT community. When we do outreach to them, other groups where there's an inconsistency. Like you said, like vegans are like way anti, I don't want to say anti-government, but anti-authority, hey, stay out of my life. I should be able to do this, blah, blah, blah. But then it just stops with guns. Like they don't take that philosophy and it doesn't match over for whatever reason.
I think a lot of them, yeah. And I think the ones that do believe the same way I do don't speak up because we've been so ostracized by the rest of the community. Like I remember I just posted, last week or something, a Let's Go Brandon shirt. And it was kind of a joke. Like it was like, whatever. And after I posted it, like I lost like 300 followers, I think, and got some pretty hateful DMs about it. And I was like, okay, if you guys know me at all, like I'm so sarcastic, and like I don't really take offense to things.
That was your mistake because there's no sense of humor on that side.
You didn't need those 300.
I did, right.
Think of it
that's
that
what he was
way.
saying.
Which is
my
opinion.
Yeah.
But
I'm like, well.
The interesting, because I remember seeing that conversation. I remember kind of watching it happen. The interesting thing is, you're not a Trump fan,
well,
right?
And that's what I even posted on there. I was like, there is a such thing as being in the middle, or kind of that libertarian almost sort of view that's like, I believe in the Constitution and maybe there's some things on the Democratic side that I believe in, but I'm not like this crazy Trump supporter. Like that's what a lot of people started accusing me. And then of course,
this president is not doing a good job.
Right. Like,
in discussion.
And that's how I feel. I'm like, don't the Democrats even understand this?
Yeah,
Like,
I really, really disdain this. Like they draw this line in the sand, and you're either on one side or the other.
Yeah.
I don't look.
I
I don't
know.
got to pick one side of your line.
Black
you know?
or white.
Yeah.
You must pick
choose
now.
or no choose. Yeah, I mean,
And that's what happened. You're not a big Trump fan. You're obviously not a Biden fan.
Right.
The other funny thing is you had a lot of vegans attacking you, like, oh, Trump's a horrible person. He eats meat, whatever. What about Biden?
Okay, that's what was so funny. So somebody actually attacked me. The shirts were made by JP Sears, who I think is
I own
hilarious.
JP Sears shirts.
Yeah, he's great. So I actually ran into him in Arizona a couple years ago. But anyway, so somebody had commented on there, I can't believe you're buying a shirt from JP Sears. He's not vegan. And I'm like, wait, so those Nikes that the children made out in China, that's vegan? Like, seriously?
Well, but Biden is Biden's not a vegan, and he's not exactly hasn't been vegan friendly.
yeah,
Right.
but Trump eats McDonald's, and we don't know what that
Actually,
is.
it's one of the reasons I love him. That's one of the reasons I love him. When he was eating, you got a billionaire in the White House eating a Big Mac. Now, I don't
with a knife and a fork.
Oh my God!
Well, because he doesn't want to get
How long have I wanted a president that would just eat a Big Mac?
They probably do a lot. You just don't catch them.
I was going to say Clinton
Well,
probably
what
had
was-
his fair share.
Who was it that used to eat Jelly Bellies? Was that Reagan?
That's Carter had the jelly beans, right?
Yeah.
Right?
No, that was
Carter?
Reagan.
No,
No,
that was Reagan.
had that.
That was Reagan.
I get those two confused a lot.
Yeah, I know you do. Yeah. Well,
You just lost 300.
Yeah, I didn't need him. Didn't want him. But no, I mean, it's so funny how people throw you into a box
I know.
automatically. I mean, the Go Brandon thing. Hello.
I thought it was
Yeah,
funny.
maybe she's just a NASCAR fan.
Well, that's what I posted.
They took it off the guy. The kid can't put anything on his car. He can't even put his name. He can put his first name, but he can't put Brandon.
It's
One of
so
the-
crazy.
One of the trainers at the gym I go to, his name's Brandon. I like to,
Oh, yeah.
hey, come on, let's go, Brandon.
Well,
So
what do you want to bet that'll be the number one name not used
Brandon.
in 2022
Completely
for
gone.
babies?
No
No
one's
baby's
ever.
going to be born, Brandon.
So have you found other? Because you and I were eating at what's the name of the place down in Ocean Beach?
Peace Pies.
Yeah, we were-
Shout out. They're amazing.
So you and I were eating there, and two of the cooks in the back. Remember?
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot. We actually met some other gun enthusiasts
Yeah.
at a raw vegan restaurant, not just a vegan restaurant, but
And they weren't just visiting. They weren't like I was just a tourist.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
hardly a vegan.
How could
But-
you be considered a tourist?
a vegan
In a
tourist.
vegan
I almost want to go with you just to see the reaction
of eating vegan food.
of you walking in and people thinking you're a vegan. They're
I
gonna
don't
s-
think anybody thought he was vegan.
No,
They
you
probably
don't
thought
think?
I was like his trainer. or something. Here, let's try this.
Yeah, here.
I'm just
But
kidding.
the
I mean, I love you to death, but you're a little on the larger side. You just don't look like
what
a
are you
vegan.
trying to say?
You're
What
fat.
does a vegan look like?
I got to tell you, I know. I've
How much have you lost now?
I was
I've-
gonna say, lost like 100 pounds.
Well, I did, but I've known a couple of vegans that were way overweight, and I'm like, why would you? That's like the worst of.
How could
of-
that be?
That's like
Because
the worst
Oreos
of
are
both.
vegan.
Yeah,
They're not honest vegans.
sugar is vegan.
Yeah, sugar and French fries are vegan. So.
Okay, so
Well, there it is.
so we were in this vegan restaurant, and two of the workers there started talking about guns. Started talking about how like one of them had just picked up a gun, whatever, blah blah blah. Went and gave them my card,
And they fainted.
and no, they were like, "Oh yeah, we've heard of you guys, whatever, blah blah blah." So my question is, I'm sure we've identified there is a strong anti-gun following in the vegan community, but there's got to be. Have you found any? Are there pro?
Do they exist?
Yeah.
I do have a friend, one of my girlfriends. I have one.
One.
Just one.
Costs a lot of
actually,
money.
Two. Yeah. I pay her weekly. No, I have two girlfriends who are both vegan and both. I would say they're pro Second Amendment, but haven't quite dove into like the whole gun world yet. Like they're open to shooting, and one of them went with me and Desi from Not Me to Poway Weapons and Gear. And she teaches mixed martial arts. And so she's already kind of in that, like,
She doesn't need a
Well,
gun.
Right. Her body is a weapon.
Yeah.
The other world that you're in is the fitness world.
Yeah, so guns are common there.
They're really pro-gun, right?
Usually, so it depends. Are you talking like, if you're talking like the bodybuilders, like the Metroflex, sort of the gym sort of crowd that's like all bodybuilders, they tend to be like pro pitbull and pro guns.
Right.
Like,
Pro pitbull.
There's pitbulls everywhere. But then if you go to like the 24-hour fitnesses or chooses or,
Isn't
what
that
it is.
funny that the pit bull is the dog of choice?
It's so funny. Maybe a Doberman sometimes, but it's usually
Or a Rottie,
the pitbull.
maybe
Yeah.
a Rottie.
Right.
My wife raises them, and we sell. Wouldn't believe how many Rotties we sell to bodybuilders.
Yeah. Well, they say that your dog or your animal
Is you.
tends to resemble you, right? I used to have a
that's
little
great.
French bulldog.
That's great. Yeah, I own pugs.
He has pugs.
So what's that tell you?
Yeah, see that? Confirmation of what you
That's
said.
nothing. He owns a cat. So I mean,
So do I.
So what do you want gun owners to know about vegans? Well, if you know,
know-
the
it tastes
typical
good.
gun owner.
Try it.
We're not all bad. No.
Try it. Just try it.
Honestly, that's the thing. Like when people talk about, like even you, Michael, when we were having conversations, I know a lot of times it would go around this vegan food is like a
Right.
phrase that people use. And I'm like, let's get away from that, because all food that is not an animal or that comes from an animal is just inherently vegan, right? So
Right.
like a lot of stuff that people eat is already that way. And I would say, yeah, like experimenting with things. And just because you go to one vegan restaurant, you try one meal and you're like, oh my God, that was terrible. Doesn't mean it all is. You know what I mean?
I
Don't
haven't
just
had
throw in the
I haven't had a
towel.
terrible vegan meal yet. To be honest with you, it's all been really delicious. What I've found is
Have
what
you ever had a
what I've-
bad meal?
Oh
Right.
yeah. What I've had to do though is I've had to like stop. You know, if they're like, hey, these are vegan nachos or whatever. I've had to stop. Like, okay, don't compare it to actual nachos.
Right.
Just enjoy it for what it is, and
Yeah.
then it's good to
Yeah.
go.
I like that. And like another thing I would say too is don't go to a big chain restaurant, like a non-vegan restaurant, and try the one vegan dish they have. Go to a vegan restaurant.
And don't you like Impossible Burgers?
Not
I
on the
didn't.
fitness side.
I gotta
right?
tell you know what? I take it back. That's the one I had. The Whopper. It was all chemically. It was
Yeah.
horrible.
I don't recommend that.
Yeah. My wife's on that verge. I think she's had 5, and she's found one restaurant that she likes. All the rest of them, she hates them. She can't stand them.
VeganInSanDiego.com. There's a whole list on there.
Ah,
They're pretty
there
awesome.
you
Little shout
go.
out for them too.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Write that down.
VEGUN.
There you go.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel, or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.